Hey friends, I'm Dr. Marisol, former naturopathic doctor. And did you know that toxins are hiding in plain sight in our everyday lifestyle? That's right, but just because you can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. So if you're a woman who's dealing with hormonal dysregulation and experiencing some of the following symptoms: fatigue, insomnia, problems sleeping, digestive disturbances like gas and bloating, weight gain in the midsection, well, you're in the right place. Because today we are going to be discussing how toxins could possibly be part of the root cause. And we'll delve into what is a toxin, how does it get into the body, what does it do when it's in the body, and how to get it out. This is part one of a 4-part series where we'll delve deep into the aspects of what we can do and empower ourselves to feel better and live a less toxic lifestyle. I'm super happy that you're here. Please make sure to stay all the way to the end for my bonus tips that you're just going to absolutely love. All right, let's get started. According to the WHO and their article, Guidance on Chemicals and Health, there are over 160 million chemicals that are man-made. 40 to 60,000 of those are within our consumer packaged goods, and 6,000 of those are most frequently used. Wow, that's a lot of toxins. So what is a toxin anyway? According to the science of homotoxicology, which is a study of toxins within the human system, a toxin is defined by something that comes from the outside in or is manufactured internally by our metabolism. The bottom line is that they cause stress and inflammation. And stress and inflammation are the root cause of all conditions, diseases, and symptoms you may be experiencing. The big issue is that it knocks out our homeostatic mechanism, which is a big fancy word for the balance within our system. And we first see the expression of that in the symptoms of the hormonal system. So whether it's insomnia, problems sleeping, weight gain in the midsection, perhaps there might be hot flashes or night sweats. You might also be experiencing a severe amount of fatigue as well, too. So where do we go from here? Well, let's learn about which toxins we actually do have control of and can adapt out of in our lifestyles, and which we have no control of. So where are these toxins coming from anyways? Well, they're coming in through our skin, the largest organ, when we wear clothing, when we go into our bed sheets at night, when we apply body butters and lotions and potions, cosmetics or makeups. They're coming in through our mouth when we're eating, when we're drinking, when we're preparing our food, when we're packaging our food as well. They're coming in through our nose when we're smelling fragrances or taking a deep breath of air outside. Would you believe that there's still evidence of lead in our air, which was from the time when we had lead in gasoline, which is a long time ago? You might be thinking to yourself, well, don't we have mechanisms like detoxification and cleansing happening in our bodies? Well, you do. Those systems are alive and well. The only thing is that the amount of toxins that we're exposed to in this day and age as compared to before the industrialized era is enormous. And so these toxins that are coming in on a regular basis are basically overwhelming our systems. And the overflow of the toxins are basically what you experience as symptoms. What's really important to note is that your detoxification and cleansing mechanisms operate at best functionality while you sleep. This is why when you're living and working and aiming to reduce your symptoms and to feel better, it is so very imperative to have a good night's sleep, because that is a time when the body does the most amount of cleanup. Now let's go back and talk about that overflow of toxins that occurs creating symptoms in your life. The rain barrel theory is frequently used to describe that process. Imagine a rain barrel being filled with toxins. When it's contained in the container, everything is fine. There really aren't any symptoms and you feel good. But the minute it begins to overflow out of the barrel, that is where you start to experience symptoms. And so the symptoms are showing toxins within our system, but only showing a very, very small amount. The reality is more is lurking in the barrel. So what do we do to improve this? Well, can we test first of all to find out if we actually have toxins? Sure, you can test, but most of the tests are very expensive and they're time consuming. Things like heavy metal tests, blood tests for chemicals, they're a lot of work. And at the end of the day, what I realized in clinical practice and aim to do in order to avoid my patients from having to actually spend so much money in testing is that I realized that patients are toxic and stressed. Those are two things that I know no matter what when they walk into my room. So if I know that, why don't I start educating them and teaching them about the areas of your life that you can actually make great change? And those areas are within your food, within your fashion, and in your beauty care. Now, can you test for these toxins? Sure you can. You can test almost anything. But in reality, what I realized with over a decade in clinical practice was that every patient was coming in with two things. They were both stressed and they had a high level of toxicity. So I would really only test when we were doing active treatment or care, say for heavy metals. And so we could monitor the benefit of the care. But for you at home, it's important to think the same thing. You're both stressed and you're toxic. And because of that, that's creating symptoms. So where are the 3 areas that you can focus on that will help to overall reduce the amount of total load, which is a concept in toxicology? How can we reduce that total load that is causing symptoms? You can do it, especially if you focus on 3 major areas of your lives. And that's your food, that's your fashion, and that's your beauty care, because these are the things that we have control of. What happens to that overflow of toxins and the rain barrel? Well, that overflow of toxins begins to store. You see, toxins are lipophilic, which means fat-loving. So where they store is in the fatty areas of our body, in your cellulite, in your midsection weight gain, and most notably in your brain. And this is why toxins are associated to problems like foggy brain, memory loss that might be affecting you on a regular basis. Here's the evidence that toxins love fat. What do you think is healthier, brown rice or white rice? I'm gonna guess you're gonna say brown, except it's actually the white rice which is healthier, because the brown rice contains the germ, and in the germ there are rice oils, and therefore brown rice tends to store more heavy metals, arsenic, cadmium, and lead than the white rice. Interesting to note, because typically out in our society and world, people are always saying to stay away from the white. However, with rice, this is not true. One of the things I correlated in clinical practice was that disturbance of sleep patterns is associated to toxins, because my most toxic patients would often wake up between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m. And as I mentioned before, the body is most active in detoxification and cleansing during those times. Now, if the body is unable to process the amount of toxins that's within the body, well, then they go and they float over to the brain and irritate the brain and wake you up. They usually wake up between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m., which is interesting because in traditional Chinese medicine, that is the hour of the liver, the organ that is most responsible for detoxification in our bodies. You know what else is really important beyond sleep? Well, it's what you are hopefully doing first thing in the morning, having a very healthy bowel movement. Why is this? Why does this impact detoxification and cleansing? Well, my friends, in the body, the liver first will process the toxins, and if they're fat soluble, they'll move them to the gallbladder. It'll dump into the small intestine and then get processed like all food does, all the way down to the end of the colon to be eliminated. So fat soluble toxins are eliminated via the colon, whereas water soluble toxins go through a different process in the body and are typically eliminated through the kidneys, skin, or the breath. Now, one of my favorite subjects to talk about is pooping, and I'm sure check out my other videos because I'll either have some already about pooping or they're coming soon, because getting your bowels regulated and making sure that they are working properly along with proper sleep is truly 2 most important basic steps that will help you in the journey of living a more toxin-free life. Now let's switch gears and talk about the actual toxins themselves. We're going to focus on the notable toxins because there are so many toxins and there's no way that I could speak about all of them. But I'm going to talk about the ones that are most particularly important for us right here and right now. Number 1 is phthalates. These are the forever chemicals that are endocrine disruptors. Yes, they mess with your hormones. Phthalates are used in scents, and they're used to preserve the length and time that the scent is available for us to enjoy. You'll find these in perfumes, in your dryer sheets, anywhere where scent has been added, and it's an easy thing to get rid of. A great way to avoid phthalates is to look at the label and notice the word fragrance. Fragrance is typically where these phthalates are hiding, and companies don't actually have to list the ingredients that this fragrance is made out of from some archaic law that was made back in the day that makes it a trademark secret for companies. So because of this, we don't get the clarity to know whether or not the fragrance is natural or whether it's coming from a phthalate. So that's a really quick little one. Make sure to read the label, and if it says fragrance, get rid of it. Do you think you might have a nose for toxins? Well, it's true. Some of us do. I do. And if this is you, there's a few reasons why. You may have had a large exposure to chemicals once upon a time, which your body wasn't able to completely eliminate. Alternatively, it could have been that over time you've just been exposed to so many toxins that your rain barrel is overly full and constantly overflowing. The third option could be because genetically your detoxification and cleansing mechanisms might not be that optimal. For you and me, it's very, very important to be practicing daily cleansing routines, also seasonal detoxification, and doing the things that we can in our lifestyle with food, fashion, and cosmetics to avoid as much toxins as we can. Because the number one principle in homotoxicology, environmental medicine, is truly to avoid the toxin as much as possible. Now, us super smellers, we are often called canaries in the coal mine. And the reason being is that back in the day, during mining times, they used to send canaries into the mine. If the canary would come out, then the mine would be safe. There would be no toxic gases and the workers could go in. If the canary sadly didn't make it out, well, then the mine would be toxic and no one would go into the mine that day. So there you have it. We're canaries in the coal mine. We're the first ones to notice toxins. There's a benefit to that. This is an awesome pro tip to really understand what you need in your life so that you can feel better. Parabens. Now, these are an interesting group of chemicals that are used as a preservative, and they've been actually in use since the 1920s. What's interesting about parabens is that they're within our cosmetics and our beauty products, and also in some drugs. Except the issue is that they're endocrine disrupting chemicals. That's right. And they affect things like fertility, birth outcomes, the reproductive organs, and they are also carcinogenic. Now, in the EU, parabens are banned. And in Canada, a few of the parabens are banned, but in the US, no parabens are banned. So really the onus comes on you, the consumer, to check out the label on every single product to see whether or not it has parabens. Now, parabens are named many different things. There's isobutylparaben, butylparaben, propylparaben. Basically, it's any word that ends in paraben, and that's what you're looking for, and that's what you want to get rid of. Because truly, it's actually just lazy that companies are still using parabens because there are so many other alternatives that they could be using. So I think this is a really awesome place we can be at where we can actually boycott, which means with your dollar, you're going to be boycotting companies that are still refusing to change their formulations because they could do it and are feeding us in our cosmetic and beauty products these parabens that are toxic to our health. All right, let's talk fluorinated compounds. Oh boy. This is a big subject because these guys have been in the news big time over the last little while. And what they are, you may know them as PFOSs or PFASs. And they stand for per or polyfluoroalkyl compounds. Okay, it's a doozy to say, and it's a chemical formula, so let's just keep the short form in action for our easy understanding. What's scary about these is that they're carcinogenic, and they're ubiquitous throughout our lifestyles in almost every single thing that we do. One of the first places we can find them is in our fast food packaging and wrappers. There was a great study done in the US that demonstrated that the majority of fast food restaurants actually contain PFOSs and PFASs in their food packaging containers and papers. And that's the reason why when you have a burger or something that's greasy or even French fries in a container, the grease doesn't go everywhere because literally the PFOSs and PFASs make a barrier between the cardboard and the food. But the only and huge issue with this is that food contains a lot of fat, especially fast food. So what's going to happen? Remember, toxins are fat loving. So the toxins from the PFOSs and PFASs are going to enter into the fatty substances of the food. Very, very scary. But One thing that's very interesting to note is that McDonald's, back in 2021, made a promise to remove all PFOSs and PFASs from their food containers by 2025, which would really be a step in the right direction since McDonald's really does feed so many people. At least then we would have a better quality food that wouldn't contain these PFOSs and PFASs. Woo! All right then. Now, where's the next place that we find these fluorinated compounds? Well, if you have any pots or pans that may be no stick. This is commonly done with polytetrafluoroethylene, otherwise known as Teflon. That's right. If you so far as even chip a little piece of that Teflon coating, that enters your body and pretty much stays there forever. And it's known to be a major toxicant. In fact, the DuPont company was sued for $110 million to actually repair the Ohio State River because they were dumping byproducts and Teflon into the river and causing people all around the Ohio area to have cancer. This was actually documented in a really, really great film on Netflix called Dark Waters with Anne Hathaway and Mark Ruffalo as the main actors. Check it out because it is very cool to note. So make sure you're not using any non-stick pans that are coated. Sadly, the fabrics and fashion of our lives is a place where we can be exposed to forever chemicals too. One thing that's really important to note is that the closer that it is to your body, the more in contact that it is with sweat, moisture, or bacteria, especially like our private areas, this makes it more likely that we are to absorb the PFASs. And a great example of this is 2 lawsuits that occurred against protected period companies Knix and Thinks for allegedly having PFASs in their underwear. This is something that we want to avoid at all costs, especially because it's so close to our delicate areas of our body, where we're most likely to absorb more chemicals than anything. But it's not only them. We're finding it in clothing across the board. You can think about it like this. If it has a stain prevention or a water repellent function, there's likely fluorinated compounds within that material or fabric. But there are also companies who are taking a pledge in their policies to not use fluorinated compounds. Just to name a few, that would be Levi Strauss, Esprit, Benetton, H&M, and also the outdoor active gear company Spyder. Very cool. I love this so much. So what you're looking for is if any of the clothing that you're buying contains any ingredient like Teflon, yep, that's the same stuff they use for the non-stick pans, or Scotchgard, Stainmaster, or Gore-Tex. These are all made out of fluorinated compounds. So that's exactly what you want to avoid. And this is why it's so important that you look at labels for your fashion, not only just for your food, but that you make fashion label looking a priority. Here's a little pearl of my practice. There's studies that show that folate and PFOSs and PFASs are inversely related, which means that if you have a lot of fluorinated compounds in your body, you're going to have a decreased amount of folate in your system. This is very dangerous because folate is part of the B family of vitamins, which are all incorporated in methylation activities in the system, which are part of the detoxification process in general. So interesting to note that folate is also required for women when pregnant because otherwise there could be neural tube defects. So what a world we live in. We have to be aware of these things and do what we can to reduce the fluorinated compounds in our fabrics of our lives. With regards to the textiles of your lives, your couch, your car seats, your window curtains, all of these fabrics, many people Scotchgard them or Stainmaster them. This is something that you want to avoid at all costs because typically there'll be skin to material contact. And when that happens, well, the transfer of these fluorinated compounds is highly likely. Think of a hot summer's day and you go and sit in your car seat in your car. Of course, your bottom of your thighs are sweating and you're absorbing all of those PFOSs and PFASs. So be careful, be aware. Now that you know, you can do something different. Now let's switch gears to microplastics. Oh boy. So according to the Plastic Pollution Coalition, listen to this. We inhale a credit card a week of plastic. 33% of our particulate dust in our air is plastic, and we ingest about 14,000 to about 68,000 microplastics a year. This is insane, especially because we know that microplastics have an impact on many areas of our health, but especially notable is our gut barrier, our microbiome, as well as our metabolism. 3 key areas that help keep the balance and homeostasis within our system, not to mention keeping us healthy and happy and feeling good. So who's the biggest culprit out of this? Well, my opinion is it's 3. It's plastic bottles, plastic bags, and fast fashion. The problem with fast fashion is that companies like Shein are producing so much clothing that really can't ever be used, and people, yourselves included, might be recycling and recirculating and purchasing new fabrics all the time. This has to stop, and it's one of the reasons why I've decided to switch over to my clothing to natural fabrics, and they last longer, they feel better, and I feel better knowing that I'm not contributing to that mass amount of plastics in our environment that is doing our bodies no good. When it comes to bottles, well, you can stop buying plastic bottles and use reusable versions instead. And of course, when we're talking about plastic bags, well, there's material bags or even the bins. They're easy to use, simple, and convenient to clean. So why not go with that? And then fast fashion. This is a big one and a big problem because a lot of the fast fashion that is manufactured in our world actually just ends up polluting the landfill that has become our oceans. And companies like Shein, H&M, even if H&M may not be using fluorinated compounds in their products, they're still contributing to the toxicity and the amount of microplastics in the environment. So buyer beware. Let's get away from these fast fashion practices, fast bottle of water, and start doing things that are more simple, easier, that will help preserve our environment and ultimately help our health and our well-being. I couldn't create a list of toxins without at least mentioning glyphosate. That's right, you may be familiar with Monsanto and their trademarked Roundup Ready herbicide. Well, turns out this herbicide, which is used mainly on GMO seeds, so genetically modified organisms, this is one of the reasons why it's important to look and purchase organic vegetables, is that this herbicide has multiple effects on our microbiome as well on our nervous system. With regards to our microbiome, Roundup Ready herbicide actually kills our microbiome, so those good bacteria that within our gut. This is impactful because even if you are taking probiotics and regenerating your gut lining, if you're consuming genetically modified organism foods that may have that herbicide, well, then there's likely a 2 steps forward and 3 steps back effect that's happening in your body. And if you're wondering why you're not getting benefit from the probiotic, that potentially could be it. The other thing that they've noted with glyphosate is nervous system symptoms such as anxiety and depression. So we need to be aware of our food source and supply, and honestly, look towards things that are more organic and not sprayed with these toxicants. It's not that organic food is totally that much more healthier. How can it be? Because it's in the same environment with all of these chemicals. But at least the choice of herbicides and pesticides that are used are more organically and less chemically impacting to the human system. So there you go. I wouldn't be a naturopathic doctor without mentioning heavy metals. That's right. Heavy metals are everywhere in our water supply. They're used in pesticides and herbicides. And we also find heavy metals in the soil, which is very interesting. If you remember back to when I was doing the example of which one was healthier, white rice versus brown rice, and we said that the brown rice, because of the germ, which had the fat, tended to be high in arsenic, cadmium, and lead. Well, the same goes true. Heavy metals store in fatty tissues. And heavy metals cause all types of problems, from hormonal disruption to autoimmune conditions. In fact, such a correlation with heavy metals and an increase in autoimmune conditions over the past years has really, in the natural professions, opened our eyes to the impact of heavy metals in our lives every day. I'm going to wrap up this list with something that is actually naturally occurring, and that's mold. Because mold has a byproduct known as mycotoxins, and these mycotoxins are severely toxic to the human system. So even though it is naturally sourced, it still is a problem for us. This is why so many people try to avoid mold or constantly searching to remediate their homes if they may think they have toxic type molds such as black mold. It's really imperative to get rid of this in your house because it is a constant source of toxification of the system. And not only does the mold produce this mycotoxin, but in fact, the mold, as it deteriorates the materials that are used in construction that are often founded and mixed with chemicals, those chemicals also release. So it becomes kind of like a mixed smorgasbord of everything all together, which is causing not only a natural mycotoxin, but also your exposure to chemicals from materials done in construction. There you go. That's the list. Truly, this list could go on forever and ever, but we have to stop somewhere. And you might be questioning right now, isn't the government doing anything to protect us? Well, the government does have in place both the FDA, which regulates food, drugs, and cosmetics, and the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. However, there are over 30,000 new products produced annually in the USA. How on earth are these government bodies going to be able to stay on top of all of these products? It's a near impossibility. So the onus is on you on educating yourself as to the source and the supplier of these products. Marketplaces such as Amazon can be very dangerous because truly, to set up a seller account on Amazon, all you need is a trademarked brand name, which can be easily established, and no other proof or evidence of product quality or safety is actually needed. And that's probably a big fault area in Amazon. So truly, it comes down to buyer beware and learn about what are the ingredients in your different products and what is it made out of so you can truly protect yourself. So, can you find toxic-free products? Well, mostly, but not all the time. And this is where we really bring the principle to play of choosing the lesser of two evils, and why it's so important to understand labels and read them, so then that way you can be educated and you can diagnose a product, whether it is better or best, because this is the way that you will empower yourself to be choosing the very best products that are for you, that are the healthiest, which will help you to always feel better. And what if you don't want to get rid of the products that you absolutely love, even though they may be harboring toxic ingredients? Well, there's also a principle in homotoxicology and environmental medicine of pick your poison, baby. So if there's something that you absolutely love, remember, we're talking about total load. If you reduce in other areas, but there's this product that you absolutely must have, can't live without, well, then you can do that, as long as overall you are reducing the total load. That's the principle in action. And for women, well, what is the best place to start? You might have noticed throughout this video, I've been speaking a lot about food, fashion and fabrics, as well as cosmetics and personal care. Because truly, I believe that those are the three areas that we have the most impact in on the daily basis. Because remember, what we're trying to really optimize isn't necessarily that detox that you do, but truly it's the daily cleansing ability of your body, because cleansing is a regular thing that is happening naturally in your system. So that's where I would begin as a woman. And in the upcoming videos that we have in this series, we're gonna go in depth on each of those subjects. So make sure that you're subscribed to my channel and that you've clicked the bell, so then that way you get a notification for when they drop. So what's my big tip? Friends, it's read the label. I've mentioned it throughout this video. It is so very important, not only for your food, because you're probably already doing that, looking at the ingredients and your macros and your micros, but also looking at the label of all your fashions, as well as all of your cosmetic and self-care products. This is an absolute essential first step, because the first step to any health journey is always awareness and opening up those eyes. Friends, what a wonderful time we've had here together, learning all about the wonderful world of toxins and what we can do to help ourselves live better and feel better on the regular. Now, I wanted to share with you 3 of my most favorite practices that I do nearly almost every day to help encourage optimal cleansing and detox. Now, this is just my personal experience, not a recommendation, because I'm not your doctor, but I frequently practice fasting in the AM. The reason for fasting is that fasting is a way to extend your detoxification and cleansing processes that are occurring while you sleep. Because the moment you break the fast, as in breakfast, well, then your body switches off your cleansing processes and turns on digestion and is busy doing that. So the longer that we could be cleansing and cleaning up things in our bodies, the better it will be. Number 2, teas. I constantly consume teas, especially in the AM while I'm fasting. I select typically a green tea. Did you know that teas are actually one of the #1 sources of antioxidants for women? Now, green tea is optimal in the daytime, but not in the evening because it does contain caffeine. So in the evening, a great tea choice is rooibos. Rooibos actually is a source of glutathione, which is our master detoxification agent, which is super, super cool. And after that, grounding practices. Because when we're grounding, that's the point where we can receive and we can eliminate and clean up what does not serve us. Grounding practices include going outside barefoot and walking for at least 10 minutes. Of course, you can get a grounding mat, or you could do something as simple as a castor oil pack every night. I do mine for an hour at least, but mainly overnight. Those are the best 3 things that I do every single day to really help optimize my cleansing abilities within my body. So I'm excited to see you on our next videos. Make sure if you still haven't, please subscribe. Press on the bell to make sure that you get notifications for when my videos drop regularly. And stay tuned for the next videos all about fashion. And then of course, we're gonna be talking about cosmetics. And of course, we could not ever end this without talking about food too. All right, have a wonderful day and we'll see you soon. I'm Dr. Marisol. It's been just such a pleasure to be here with you.